Mexico shut out Panama in this friendly match. In this friendly match that the Mexican national team played ahead of the upcoming World Cup in the United States, Mexico, and Canada, the Mexican team played a preparation friendly against Panama, an opponent they faced, of course, and an opponent that surprised everyone in the last CONCACAF qualifiers in the North and Central American region. We'll discuss what Javier Aguirre's team's victory means. Mexico has won, and that's significant. It was a squad of players from Mexican soccer that played today, and that, for example, some of the Mexican players who are playing in Europe were missing. It's important to note that Mexico, beyond this win, broke a long winless streak. Even though this is a friendly match that falls outside of a Federación Internacional de Fútbol Association date, even though this is a friendly that slipped through, it was practically arranged as an extra for the Mexican national team so they could continue their preparation for the big World Cup event we'll have in June. We have to remember that Mexico hadn't won an official match since that game against the United States in the Gold Cup final. We remember this doesn't count as an official match, but it's still important for the Mexican team to get back to winning. Mexico has won, that's what matters, and we're going to talk about it. Let's break down Javier Aguirre's team's victory step by step. Of course, these kinds of friendlies, these kinds of matches, when they're played with players from the local leagues, they are very useful to start pre-selecting for the next World Cup. The truth is that, regarding the match, Mexico was a little better than Panama, but they end up winning with a goal at the end, a goal that turns out to be a bit unusual, plus it's an own goal that gives Mexico the win. A victory against none other than Panama. But what we really need to highlight, especially in this match, is that Mexico is starting to wrap up their preparations for the next World Cup. And the truth is, we have to say that Mexico is not ready, or not as ready as they thought they were, the Mexican national team. The Mexican team at the 2022 World Cup, they had a performance that was unworthy because they couldn't get past the round of 16 against a group that was indeed challenging. The Mexican national team in the last World Cup fell short, both in results and gameplay. Well, it was a poorly played World Cup by Mexico, and Mexico had a very important challenge. They had 4 years to prepare for the World Cup, knowing they were already qualified. This was mentioned on several Mexican websites in the voices of various journalists who covered the daily life of the Mexican national team. It was talked about as a double-edged sword, because yes, it allows you to focus 100% on the World Cup, but in the same way, it affects you too. This makes you relax because you're not in danger of missing the World Cup. Even though the qualifiers in North America are pretty easy for Mexico and the United States, that doesn't mean Mexico didn't get too relaxed. Well, we're just a few months away from the World Cup, very few months, and it seems like Mexico isn't ready for what they had really prepared for, which is, with the opportunity of being the host, trying to have a great World Cup, and not to mention reaching the quarterfinals again, something Mexico hasn't achieved in many years. Now, thinking about what's coming, there are some things we need to point out that we'll be going over. First, Mexico had lost to Paraguay, had lost to Colombia, and Mexico had also drawn with Uruguay, had drawn 0-0 with Uruguay in that match. The truth is that the Mexican national team, when it had to face other teams, wasn't up to the task. It wasn't measuring up. Well, regarding that, let's see what happens in the last rounds, especially in the last Federación Internacional de Fútbol Association dates, because we're going to review what's left for Mexico. Because there are only a few matches left before the World Cup. Obviously, there are some interesting things from this last friendly, even though it might not have been the match people expected. At least from Javier Aguirre's perspective, there are some things to take away. Let's see if he can end up including players like Germán Berterame, who have been having some good years in the Mexican League. There's a big leap from the Mexican League to the national team. You begin comparing yourself to players with European experience and a different caliber. And not much more really, not much more than what this match has been. We're going to start little by little talking about what this has been. To start wrapping up this reaction, this analysis on the Falso Nueve channel, please like, comment and subscribe. And speaking about what's coming up with the World Cup, because you on the other side, Mexicans, who might be tuning in to the Falso Nueve television channel, after what this match was, the truth is that this match, beyond maybe having something interesting from some local national team players, the truth is it still shows that this team is lacking. This team is lacking. I think Javier Aguirre is a coach who knows Mexican soccer very well, but it still feels like the team isn't ready. Like the team isn't ready. That today there was a friendly match with Juan, the local team, and it's not like anything new was discovered either. The truth is that the match Mexico ended up playing was just average. They clearly deserve more than Panama. They won with that last-minute goal. Let's see what happens in the remaining friendlies. The problem with all this is that the margin for error keeps getting smaller and smaller. And Mexico? I'm not sure if they're ready. And is it really a mystery what kind of World Cup Mexico is going to have? If we count the players Javier Aguirre tried today who could go to the World Cup, it's those already on the team, since some from the Mexican League are already core members. Now, which players can be added? Which players as well? What condition will the players in Europe be in? Some aren't getting enough minutes, others are, so it's uncertain how Mexico will arrive. Is Mexico ready for the World Cup? I don't know if they're prepared for the World Cup. And to perform, I'm not even saying to do great, I'm talking about a respectable performance. Because it's true that they've gotten a fairly accessible group. The group could have been much worse for Mexico. Now you have to play against South Africa, you have to play against South Korea, and you also have to play against whoever comes from the UEFA playoff. So it's going to be very difficult. Everything that comes for the Mexican national team will be tough challenges. Let's remember they're going to play against Bolivia, they're going to play against Iceland, and they'll finish against Belgium. I think it's very important that Mexico can play against Belgium in the last friendly before the next World Cup, because this will show that the Mexican national team will arrive with a different level of experience. They'll play Bolivia, who must win playoffs for a World Cup spot, Iceland, who didn't qualify, and Belgium, who are already in the World Cup. And they've also arrived as one of the teams with the best qualifying campaigns along the way to the 2026 World Cup. Mexico has won. This local team led by Javier Aguirre, the Mexican national team, has won, right? They've left an impression that was perhaps expected. Maybe there were slightly higher expectations for this match, especially with the participation of Romo, with Vargas, and a bit of Alvarado, who's trying to regain the level he once had. Guzman and Gonzalez also appeared, but that's about it. The Mexican national team beat Panama with a clean sheet in a match that wasn't decided until the 90th minute. It was a scoreless draw that offered little to the viewer, and they ended up winning it. The Mexican national team will have to keep working. They'll have to keep figuring out that final roster that Javier Aguirre will have for the World Cup. The truth is, Mexico isn't ready for the big World Cup event in June. And they will have to keep working in this process and, above all, with this core group of Mexican players. We invite you to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.